I'm George McCullough. I'm the winemaker in residence for the first month here at Residence. These are some of our winter releases. They're all 2024. The wines are all sort of geared towards food. Generally speaking, the wines under the gum label are. They're more sort of savoury in style, and they're about spice and texture. So we've done a really big focus on Viognier. There's a small vertical of Viogniers that have been produced by me over the last few years, coming from a vineyard site in Heathcote. The wine is, always very floral and spice laden and textural, and it makes up a really important part of our winter release for my own wine label, because generally it goes very well with the seasonal food of this time of the year. So the vegetable offering from this time of the season, but also with winter seafood. I think about food whenever I'm making wine. I think about the context of dishes on a table, and I don't just make wine to drink, I make wine to enjoy with a meal, and that kind of context is everything in terms of how I go about, tannin and the shape of the wines that I'm producing. And I really lean into wines with more savoury characters because I find they generally go better with food. So this is the 2024 Gum Afield Viognier. It comes from a vineyard site in northern Heathcote that I've been working with for the last 5 years, and was one of the first vineyard sites that we started working with when I was setting up Gum. It's grown by a meticulous German mechanical engineer called Andreas Greiving on the west end of Mount Camel in Tullin. And the vineyard practices are amazing, and it's a real joy to work with this fruit every year. It's a warmer part of Heathcote, but for the style of Viognier that I'm sort of setting out to make, the opportunity to work with riper style fruit and lean into that ripeness end of the spectrum and create a more textural style of Viognier is really appealing with this vineyard site. So it's all on the Precambrian era soil. It's a 550 million year old sandy soil that predates modern life, but gives these wines incredible dimension. There's great concentration of flavour every year with the grapes that come from this site. So one thing that I read when we were going over the menu in the early days was Jerusalem artichokes, and earthiness and sweetness and the texture of this wine. It's one of those things that yearly I kind of look forward to eating Jerusalem artichokes and drinking this wine when I release it. It's textural interplay, and the kind of spicy characters of the wine and the glycerol texture of the wine work really well with the really savoury, earthy characters of the Jerusalem artichokes. So I touched on winter seafood earlier, and this wine's always released at the beginning of winter with the idea of seafood in mind, and things like scallops and sardines and those kind of richer, more kind of fatty, textural, full flavored seafood dishes. Absolutely. Scallops, almond and saffron. I'm reading that now. I'm God, get around that with a glass of Viognier. Sounds good. 2024 Chardonnay. And this comes from a site that basically when I was setting up Gum, as every emerging producer does, you have to kind of figure out a place to buy grapes from. I went out to this vineyard in Cathedral Range with the intention of asking the owners to purchase grapes from them, and walked away signing a lease on a vineyard. This was an opportunity to basically throw my hat in the ring and completely shift my lifestyle and have a stab at farming grapes. Yeah, pretty lunatic choice, really. This is Chardonnay from Cathedral Range. This is in the Gum lineup a wine that we actually farm the grapes from rather than just purchasing the fruit from. And we really have a lot of control over the inputs, and we're out there during winter pruning. We're touching every vine at least 12 times during the growing season. It's all work done by hand. It's all farmed to organic practices, but it's really a flagship in the Gum stable, and it doesn't get made every year. But yeah, it's a wine that I absolutely love.
How's it going? Hi.
It's good.
George McCullough, everybody.
Yeah, and there was, who was I chatting to? Saying there's another auction site.
So this is Syrah, and not labelled Shiraz, but purposefully named as Syrah. The difference between Shiraz and Syrah, Syrah is the French name for it. Generally, stylistically, in Australia, the wines are more high-toned and fragrant and fresh. And here we picked the Shiraz grapes from the Mount Alexander vineyard slightly earlier with the view to make like a really fresh and fragrant and aromatic style of Shiraz. All about sort of bright red fruits, but this like really graphite-y mineral character, and lots of that sort of black olive and charred meat kind of character as well. This site's pretty amazing. It's a 40-year-old vineyard at the bottom of Mount Alexander, and it's like a really like sandy, weathered, granitic soil, and I love that relationship of like sandy soils and red grape varieties. You get this like amazing aromatic buoyancy and really great lift of fruit characters. And I'm really excited about Harcourt, particularly for Rhone varieties, because I think this region, it's like elevated, it's got these amazing soils. You can make these like, medium-bodied, really like supple, mineral-driven reds. On the menu, like roast lamb rump, hanger beef, ox tongue, peppercorn, let's go. Black pepper in the Syrah and the peppercorn sauce with the beef. It's sort of impossible to not have a good time eating and drinking the two of those. Label-wise, I've been working with an artist called Thomas Jeppy, originally from Perth, but lived in Melbourne, and now lives and works in Paris, and has been for the last sort of 6 or 7 years. The labels have sort of 3 separate tiers for gum: shorter élevage wines, and the wines that are all about sort of high drinkability go under this series of like pigs wearing masks. It was a pre-existing set of artworks by Tom called The Mask. There's something, quite playful, but also something kind of sinister and a little dark about it as well, which I kind of love. But for me, it's like, it's the mask you wear where you're out in public. And later in the year, there's going to be sort of 8 or 9 releases under this label, so the story will make a little bit more sense. Having spent a bit of time in the Rhone and loving white Rhone varieties like Viognier and Marsanne and Roussanne and Grenache Blanc, there's a series of textural white wines that will go under this series of trees, and the series called The Nature of Submission is sort of all about like giving away a part of yourself for the greater good. And then all our estate-grown fruit and premium releases go into this lattice series, which are sort of, old world inspired, I guess. The Chardonnay, I love drinking white Burgundy and Chablis, and I think, I hope you see a little bit of that in the wine that I make as well. But yeah, it's a little nod to some of my favorite producers in the labeling style there. Yeah. Cool.